I believed my marriage was ordinary until one day, as I was cleaning, my stepson and his friends suddenly arrived at the house. The silence was broken as I leaned over to wipe the large white couch, and the sound of the door slamming open startled me. For a second I jumped, the vacuum still humming, so I couldn't immediately see who it was. Turning my head, I saw my stepson Adrian and his friend, a dark-skinned, athletic young man, standing at the entrance. Adrian, my 19-year-old stepson, bore no resemblance to his father. While his dad had a stern demeanor, Adrian's youthful face always carried a hint of mischief. His dark brown hair and sun-kissed skin gave him an effortlessly lively appearance. His friend had a similar carefree aura, his slightly disheveled look adding to the charm of youth. "Mom!" Adrian said, his voice tinged with surprise but softened by a smile. "What are you doing here at this hour?" His words pulled me back to reality. Without thinking, I switched off the vacuum and stood upright. The strap of my tank top had slipped off my shoulder, and as I noticed it, I quickly adjusted it. But when I caught his friend's gaze on me, I felt a sudden wave of embarrassment, the heat rising to my cheeks. "I was just cleaning," I replied, trying to mask my surprise. "Why are you here so early? Aren't you supposed to be in school?" Adrian ran a hand through his hair with a casual laugh. "We left early today. Thought we'd hang out with Tom," he explained. "But I didn't expect to find you like this." Tom, Adrian's friend, stepped forward slightly, offering me a faint smile as his eyes briefly swept over me. I felt uneasy, yet there was something in his look, a curious intrigue that was hard to ignore. Adrian, standing beside him, appeared far more innocent, but Tom's gaze carried a depth that unsettled me. Adrian shrugged nonchalantly and said with a teasing tone, "I figured you'd be cleaning when we got back, but I didn't expect you to look this good." His eyes sparkled with playful mischief. Tom, taking off his shoes, chimed in with a surprised grin. "Adrian, is your mom really 42?" he asked, raising his eyebrows. A brief silence followed, broken only by Adrian's light chuckle. "Yeah, Tom. Why? Does she look old to you?" Tom's eyes flitted over me again before he replied quickly, "Not at all. You look so young and really beautiful." His voice carried a warm sincerity. At that moment, I became aware of the thin material of my tank top and the way my leggings hugged my figure. With a shy shrug, I said, "Thanks," an involuntary smile forming on my lips. Adrian and Tom moved to the living room and turned on the PlayStation, sprawling on the couch as they immersed themselves in their game. I took the opportunity to tidy up the rest of the living room. Picking up a dust rag, I began cleaning around the TV. As I wiped the edges of the television, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that Adrian and Tom had paused their game to watch me. Both of them were silently observing. At first, their attention made me uncomfortable, but deep down, I couldn't deny that I liked it. It made me feel youthful and attractive again. Pulling myself together, I left the room and headed to the kitchen. After some time, Adrian followed me into the kitchen, saying he wanted coffee. "Can you make us some iced coffee?" he asked innocently. I was standing on a chair, leaning forward to clean the inside of the kitchen cabinets. Looking down at him, I replied, "Of course, I'll make it right away." But I couldn't help noticing the way his gaze lingered on me. The intensity in his eyes sent a jolt through me. Trying to steady myself, I prepared the coffee and brought it to the living room, where Adrian and Tom were still engrossed in their game. Handing them their drinks, I sat beside them, feeling a warmth in being close to them. Tom, as chatty as ever, started discussing game strategies, and Adrian eagerly joined in. But soon Tom's phone rang. It was his family calling. "I've got to go," he said, getting up quickly. Adrian shrugged casually. "No worries. Come by later," he said. After Tom left in a hurry, the room fell silent, leaving just Adrian and me. The soft hum of the game console was the only sound as Adrian turned to me with a faint smile. "You've got a different vibe today," he said, his tone warm and focused. In that moment, the atmosphere in the room seemed to shift, as though the air had grown heavier. Breaking the silence, Adrian let out a deep breath and smiled playfully. "Honestly, it's probably better that Tom left," he said, his gaze locking onto mine. "I've been wanting to spend time alone with you ever since you married my dad, but the chance just never came up." His words caught me completely off guard. Realizing I was gripping my coffee mug too tightly, I struggled to process what he had just said. Or maybe I didn't want to. Our eyes met briefly before I quickly looked away. "Why would you want something like that?" I asked, my voice tinged with nervousness. Adrian gave a light shrug, leaning closer on the couch. His expression grew more serious, and combined with his confident posture, it left me momentarily speechless. "Because I know my dad doesn't make you happy," he said, his voice steady. When I look at you, it's like you're searching for something more, like you're not getting the attention you deserve. My heart began racing uncontrollably as those words hit me. The mix of embarrassment and undeniable temptation was overwhelming. I didn't want Adrian to notice how unsettled I was, but the warmth creeping into my cheeks betrayed me. Adrian, you shouldn't be saying things like that, I managed to say, my voice trembling slightly. Yet, as I looked at him, I couldn't ignore the surge of excitement his forbidden words had sparked within me. Adrian stayed silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on mine. You're right, he said slowly, his tone dropping to something deeper, almost intimate. Maybe I shouldn't, but it's the truth, and I felt like I needed to say it. The gap between us had almost vanished. He was now so close I could feel his breath on my skin. He set his coffee mug down and leaned in toward me. This coffee is really good, he murmured, his voice carrying a warmth that left me utterly defenseless. Then after a brief pause, he softly pressed his lips to my cheek. A rush of shock and heat swept through my entire body. I couldn't move. No, I didn't move, even if I had wanted to. The enchantment of the moment held me completely still. Adrian didn't pull away. His gaze remained locked with mine. When his lips moved toward me again, I found myself unable to resist. I didn't stop him. Instead, I returned the kiss. Soft, yet intense. It felt as though time had paused at the edge of something forbidden. My heart pounded. A chaotic mix of fear and electrifying excitement. Adrian's closeness, his warmth, and his sincerity drew me into a complexity I'd never experienced. Yet, somewhere deep inside, a small voice reminded me that this wasn't right. When our lips finally parted, I was left breathless, my thoughts a tangled mess. Adrian! I began, but my words faltered, dying in my throat. Gently, he interrupted. I know. His voice was calm but firm. But I can't hide how I feel. And I think you feel something for me too. His words scared me, yet they pulled me in, like a force I couldn't resist. I dropped my gaze to the floor, hoping it might somehow help untangle the chaos in my mind. But Adrian's presence broke through every boundary, every rational thought I tried to cling to. Adrian stepped back slightly and took a deep breath, a look of resolve crossing his face. Then, as if with renewed determination, he straightened and moved closer again, his every step deliberate, watching my every reaction. His hand rested on my waist, firm yet gentle, as though testing the limits of what I would allow. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded wildly in my chest. When our eyes met again, the intensity of the moment was impossible to ignore. Adrian pulled me a little closer, and this time his lips met mine in a kiss that was deeper, more passionate than before. My body responded instinctively to his warmth, and every thought, every sound, faded into nothingness. As my mind grew hazy, I found myself surrendering to him completely. But then, everything shifted so abruptly it was like the entire room had spun. Disoriented, I suddenly realized I was sitting on the couch, still wearing the same clothes I'd been cleaning in earlier. My mind raced to piece together what had just happened, replaying every second. Adrian's warmth lingered on my skin, but the storm of emotions inside me refused to settle. My thoughts spiraled. What had really just taken place? How much of it was real? And the most pressing question, when my husband came home, would anything ever go back to the way it was? How could we return to normal after this? I quickly got up and headed to the bathroom. Stepping into the shower, I let the hot water cascade over me, its sting biting at my skin. I desperately tried to wash away the confusion clouding my mind, but deep within, something felt like it was about to break. I couldn't stop thinking about what had occurred, about what it meant, and about the cost I would have to bear for it all.